To kick off Tech Day, I am pleased to present Henrik Hulgaard, VP of Product Management and co-founder of Configit. Henrik will provide an overview of some use cases to help us understand how the configuration lifecycle management approach can be utilized within your organization, strategy, and current IT infrastructure. Please join me in welcoming Henrik to guide us in our configuration lifecycle management journey.
Thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate to be here. So today we are going to be a little bit more practical than what we have been doing for the last 2 days. Over the last previous 2 days of the CLM Summit, you heard a lot about how you can utilize a CLM platform to achieve various types of benefits. So you have hopefully seen this little diagram on the right here a number of times. We use that as an illustration on how a CLM solution can be used to ensure that the various functions in an organization is coordinated and aligned when it comes to configuration and pricing information. And if you are aligned on that, you can reap the various types of benefits. Now, what we will try to answer today is, how do you get started? This all sounds great, but it's also a fairly general and lofty, you could say, vision of how to do this. So what we hope to achieve in the next hours is to really bring this down to a practical level and come with some suggestions on how to get started. You will also see various people demonstrate the capabilities of the solutions that we have developed over the years. So how do you get started? Well, of course, there are many ways to approach this, and it's not like we have one size fits all, but I will still suggest a approach where you focus on getting value out of whatever project you do quickly, while keeping the long, ambitious goals at sight. And you could say the very first step in this approach would be to start looking at what are the specific challenges that you would like to address by introducing a CLM solution. What are the main pain points? And that should, of course, be the first place to start looking. And as you know, the CLM circle, the diagram here, covers quite a number of different functions and areas. We have the engineering area, where engineers are developing the products. Typically, they use tools from a PLM tool from from a PLM vendor to manage their parts, their bill of material, their CAD drawings, the processes, the change orders, and so on. This would be a place to look at if you want to get faster time to market. You might want to improve how you manage the complexity of the product offering. It might be if you want to improve the quality by making sure that the bill of materials are correct. So that could be one place to start introducing a CLM solution. Another place, and I think this is probably the most typical place, that is in the sales area, where you want to make sure that you can expose your product offering in the various sales channels. And the benefits you will find there is that you get quicker turnaround times, you get more accurate quotes that you can send out, more accurate information, accurate pricing, but also that you eliminate configuration errors. And that, of course, those errors, when discovered late in the process, you have to get back to the customer, and that would cause friction and frustration. We also have customers that really are focusing more on the manufacturing side of things, and this is where we typically see things like manufacturing orders that are not correct. That would be a reason to introduce a CLM solution. Make sure that the bill of materials that manufacturing deal with are accurate, and also basically optimize the whole manufacturing side of things. And then finally, we have the service area. And this is an area where we see a lot more interest, both because it deals with how can we service the machinery, the products in the field more efficiently by having accurate information, but also to support a process where you can upgrade existing machinery with new capabilities. Maybe a machine has been in service for some years, and instead of replacing it, you want to upgrade it. And based on the existing configuration, a CLM solution can support that process. We also see an increased focus on service contracts and basically managing those. So these are the four fundamental areas of the CLM circle, and starting by finding the main pain points will help you also to understand what part of the organization that needs to be the key sponsor of such a project. Now, once this has been established, the next step in the process would be to look at where do we have some data. So a lot of data already exists in the enterprise. You already have pricing information. You already have configuration rules, some of which may be in Excel or, Word documents that is not so easily accessible. It might even sometimes be in the heads of people who are experts, but are engineers that have specialized knowledge in their heads. So understanding where this data is sitting today and making a decision on how we're going to handle that in a CLM solution. And there are basically two approaches here. One is that you can use our modeling tool to create the data in our tool in Ace, or you can identify existing systems that have the data. It could be an existing PLM system that has the engineering rules. It could be some legacy systems that has been built over the years that has that knowledge embedded within them, and then extract that data and import it into Ace. So that would be what we call the rules reuse approach, where you basically reuse as much data as possible. And that allows you to keep maintaining the data in the existing system, but get the power of the Ace configurator and also the single source of truth, because you will bring together maybe from multiple different sources into a consolidated representation. So if you look at what Ace offers in the product, you will find that Ace is a platform. So basically, a lot of functionality is exposed by having open, standard, documented, stable APIs. And APIs allows you to easily extend and integrate the platform with whatever other systems you might have. And within the Ace platform, you have a number of modules. These are the green circle-ish things in the middle there. And the modules we currently have is a modeling module. So this is for creating and authoring rules and creating them as a basis for a configuration solution. We have a verify module for validating that the rules are correct, making sure that you have the behavior that you expect. It also exposes some functionality that allows you to validate the bill of materials using a solution space report. Then we have a module called Configure, which is for interacting with the models that gets created, configuring them, also determining the price and the bill of material. And then finally, we have a module called Design Automation, which is for supporting an integration between your CAD environment and the configuration rules. Now, as I said, you may decide to create rules from scratch and basically build up the new models within Configit Ace using the model module. But you can also decide that you import data from whatever existing sources you have. And I've listed some of the traditional sources that we support. For example, if you have a SAP variant configuration model or SAP pricing, we can extract that out of an SAP system and import into the Ace platform, and thereby making that data available in the verify and configure modules. But we can also import from PLM systems or, as I said, from legacy rules. Once you have it in here, you can access the data. And the nice thing about having an Ace platform or CLM platform is that the interaction from whatever systems you use to interact with this data would not know whether the data came from Ace model or whether it came from SAP or whatever it came from, the APIs to interact with the data, to get the pricing, to get the configuration, those APIs are the same. So you can build a single consuming application, and maybe you start by using your SAP data, but then you decide later to start modeling some of your new products using Ace model and have a mix of those two for a period of time. That's perfectly fine. The APIs are the same. Whatever commercial applications you build on top of this will not know which data source was in play. And that is really the beauty of having a single source of truth, is that you don't have to build integrations that go specifically to each of these systems. So once you have decided the key area to go to and whether to import the rules or create them from scratch, the next step would be to, now we have all this data within the platform, you need to decide what integrations are we going to build. So we need a fully integrated system at the end to get all the values that we talked about the previous 2 days, but you can pick one or two and start with those. But that would be the natural next step, is to integrate, for example, to a sales application, maybe a website, e-commerce platform, dealer portal, what have you. There are many, many systems that may benefit from this data, and that has to be planned out. We already talked a little bit about where data could come from on the left-hand side here. The types of integrations that we normally see in the sales area and on the right-hand side is, of course, to CPQ systems like our own quote application. It could also be to Salesforce, either Salesforce CPQ or just a regular Salesforce, where your quote would then be a CPQ solution. And we also often see integrations to other CRM systems, to public websites. And we have, as you may know, a tight integration to Unity. If you want to show your products in a beautiful 3D environment, you can use the Unity system to visualize it. Now, the last point here of once you have built integrations, the last point is, of course, to start benefiting from having a single consolidated data set where you can start optimizing and utilizing the data that you have collected from the various sources. And a typical place to do that, or a typical way to do that, is, for example, to use our solution space analysis, solution space reporting. This is a capability that will, based on all the different rules, will basically allow you to zoom in on a certain part of your configuration model, have the configuration engine specify what are the valid combinations of those parameters. And based on that, you can start asking yourself, why do we have so many? In this case, I have a simple example. There are 5 combinations, but we often see, for example, that there are, for a certain area of your product, you suddenly realize that you have 80 different combinations. And if you combine this with sales data, you can start doing interesting analysis in terms of optimizing the offering and simplifying the bill of material and the variance of that based on this analysis. So those are basically the 4 phases that we suggest that you consider when implementing a CLM solution. Now, I have a couple of examples from our customers of how this could look like. And of course, every customer is different. What I've done is I've selected one customer that uses the rule reuse approach, that is CNH. CNH is a manufacturer of agricultural equipment, as the one shown here in the picture in the back. And they are using Ace to both improve their interaction with their dealers, but also internally and on a public website. So if you look at their solution, they have rules that come out of 2 different systems. They have an SAP system where they have some of the data, and they have a legacy PLM system called PRP, apparently. And what they do is that they extract the data out of those 2 systems, and they import that into our configure module. So once you have that in the configure module, you can start interacting with it and build integrations. So the first area that they have integrated is to expose their product data to different groups of external users. One type of external user is the dealers that need a specialized portal to order the tractors and whatnot from CNH. So they have used the configure service to build a dealer portal. And then when a dealer configures a product, he can place an order directly into the SAP system, in the ERP system. Now, they have then used the same data, the same services to build a public website. And that allows anybody, you and I, can just go into CNH homepage and you can find the tractor configurator. And if you click a button, they have integrated that up to the dealer portal so that you can save that configuration and create a lead. And then you will be contacted by your local dealer to take the further dialogue. Once you have that, you can, again, based on the same data, you can, they have built an offline application, an iPad application. And since we also offer the configuration information in an offline version, they can synchronize that down to the iPad. That allows them to go out in places of the world where you do not have a good, strong internet connection. And that allows them to configure the product on site, and then they can bring it back. And when then they get online, they can create a lead in their dealer portal. So those are all external users of this data here. Now they have then also integrated the configure service with some internal products. One is they have an enterprise configurator, which is an internal engineering facing configurator that they use for their own, basically a punch out of the ERP system if you want to reconfigure an order. And this is used, this has all the details from also from an engineering perspective. And they also have a offering analytics module that they have built, again, using the same API and the same data to optimize the products that they offer. So all of this is based on existing data that is still being maintained in those two systems, the ERP and the PLM system. Now, the other customer case I have put forward here is ABB NEMA. And NEMA is producing motors, electrical motors, is part of the ABB group. They have been using Ace for a number of years, and they are using the modeling module of Ace. So they started out by creating the models in model. They basically decided that even though they had those models already in an SAP system, it was better, nicer, faster to recreate those models directly in a modern modeling environment than it was to keep maintaining that in SAP. So they created the models in our modeling environment, and then they used the configure API, and they started by exposing that data in a motor builder, in a configurator for their electrical motors, in an interface that was already part of their e-commerce platform. So they integrated this configurator that they had built on top of this service. They integrated that into their e-commerce platform that their dealers would then be using. And then they integrated it to SAP so that they could call the configurator again out of SAP, and they could upload orders from the e-commerce platform to the SAP system. They also built an integration to the PLM system, because one of the things that will be important is to make sure that there is an alignment from the bill of materials as they are being created in the PLM system. Since these are configurable products, then the bill of material is also configurable. And that means that you have to make sure that when you introduce new features and options in the modeling world, in the feature world, that has to be reflected in the PLM system so that you can start creating what's called selection conditions on the BOM and thereby you can define how the bill of materials should be adapting to the configuration as it comes in. So having an integration between the features as mastered in our modeling environment with the PLM system is quite essential for being able to create these selection conditions. And then once the BOM has been created in PLM, it will be synchronized to the ERP system and used in the whenever an order comes in, it applies the configuration and determines the bill of material based on that. Okay, so I can see I'm actually a little faster than I was supposed to be. I hope the people managing this can accommodate that. But basically, in summary, I tried to convey an approach to move from deciding where you want to start, how you're going to get these models into ACE, what integrations to build first, and eventually how to get value out of that by optimizing and analyzing the offering. We have a program today where we take each of these elements and spend some time showing you how this is done in practice. So we have a lot of hands-on examples coming up. So the first session will be Laura, who will introduce you to ACE model. So this is about how do you create these models? How do you write rules? How difficult is it to get started on that? What are the capabilities that we offer in the ACE model environment? Then we will have Jesper. He will dig into how can we analyze these models? How can we validate that they're correct? How can we optimize and ensure that they are as we would like them to be? Then we will show you how to build configurators. This will be Jens. He will show something about how you can build these front ends, these customer-facing front ends that are built on top of our service to have a user interact with your configurator. Then we will show you how you can integrate your existing systems with ACE, how you can leverage the fact that now you have all the configuration and pricing data in one place, how you can extend, for example, Salesforce to use that data. And then finally, we will talk about how can you go towards having a configure to order process if you come from more of an engineer to order, where you have a traditional engineering process in the sales processes and would like to optimize that to introduce a configuration solution. So Anders will talk about that. So that was basically what I had planned to present to you right now. So I hope, Tom, I know I'm a little early here, but we have some time if there are some questions at least.
Absolutely. Thank you, Henrik. We actually did have a question come in. The question is, are there any built-in APIs in ACE which converts the logics and rules in Studio to ACE? And this is with regards to Virtue Build Modeler and Build Studio.
Okay, so I believe this is about a customer who is using our build solution, our system level solution, and the question was whether we can import those. So I think if I understand correctly, the answer is that you can convert part of the build models into ACE models. In particular, all the logic, or a lot of the logic. All the part of the logic that has been written as rules, declarative rules, they can be converted and imported into ACE. But the build models will also contain other things. They typically have a lot of calculations. They will have a lot of UI definitions, and those cannot automatically be converted. They will have to be basically recreated, I believe, or at least manually somehow. I don't think there's an automatic way to do that, but it depends a little bit on how these models are in the first place. But the build solution you can build very, very complex solutions in there, and automatically converting them, that would be hard to do fully, but certainly you can do partly.
Absolutely. Perfect. And then just out of curiosity, one of the things I always find is that Configit Ace is so flexible and it offers such a robust solution. But where do you kind of begin is one of the things that you mentioned. Are there any prerequisites that you need to have in order to kind of use and gain the benefits from using Configit Ace?
I mean, you need to have a wish to go towards configurable products. Otherwise, it probably does not make so much sense. But customers come from different directions. There are the customers that are fairly mature. They already have existing solutions. They already have existing rules. They know what a configurable product is. They have worked with it for years, and for them it's a matter of, as I said, finding a way to either leverage existing data directly or just converting it into Ace model and continue the maintenance of it there. But then there are the customers that are on a that are less mature, you could say. They may not have configurable bill of materials and configuration models already. They may have a engineer to order process where the bill of material is basically handled for each individual customers. And they can also get started, but that would be a different approach. You would have to start identifying what are the configuration parameters that make sense and start using a configurator to drive the bill of material. And then there's a third type of customers, those that come from the different direction, you could say, that are very parts oriented, that work with standard parts, a lot of them typically, and they would like to use a configurator to basically avoid mistakes in the ordering process, because now in the traditional way you have salespeople, they have to remember and know what all these parts do and how they fit together and how they form a solution. And if they want to move towards more of a capability-based approach where you either a sales rep or a customer can specify what are my requirements, and then the parts gets calculated by the configurator, then that would also be a way to get started. And again, they would have to basically create these models from the starting point. They need to create the logic of what parts will go together and how do you achieve a certain capability. I'm not sure I fully answered that question, but
No, I think it kind of elaborates that it is a flexible solution and you can kind of start anywhere you really need to. We have enough time for just one more quick question. And the question is, has your product ever been leveraged for a product that is dimensionally configured, such as windows or cabinets or doors or anything of that sort?
Oh, yeah. I think we have several customers that do that. And there's nothing in our configurator that should restrict or limit you. We have a very, very powerful configuration engine that can handle any arithmetic expression and arbitrary, dimensions and things like that. So that I think you can find a number of customers that have that type of product on our customer list, and I think some of them even presented at this Helm Summit. Abonia might be an example. They do building materials, so there are a lot of dimensions in that. We have several companies that do doors, as far as I know. So that should not be a problem to have a dimensional part of it. I mean, we tend to talk a lot about cars, and cars, when you configure a car, it is a very discrete space where you select a color like red, green, and blue. But we certainly have other customers where you have, for example, a turning radius of a truck. It's a fairly complicated arithmetic expression that has square roots and whatnot in it, based on the wheelbase and other parameters of the truck. And as a customer, you might want to configure a truck that has a turning radius of X meters. So the configuration engine can definitely handle that type of constraints.
Very interesting. Well, thank you once again, Henrik, for your time.